Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Doctor in the House, the #1 show that provides you with the news and views on all things medical. So I think we have recovered from the madness of Carnival and we're back on board with a bumper program in store for you this evening. Just a reminder that we're live on Monday nights and there is a rerun of this show on Saturday afternoons at 1 p.m. So I know exams in the air, so most of our viewers would have children in the household who will be getting ready for exams leading right up into June. But take some time and listen to some of the news of a medical nature. And well, after the carnival season, we moved right into the start of Lent, and that leads to the celebration and the remembrance of the crucifixion and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Spiritual Shouter Baptist Day is also held in the month of March, so that's on March the 30th, unfortunately on a Saturday this year, so we don't get much of a holiday there. And last week, so marked World Book Day in the United Kingdom, and that's a reminder about providing books to all children and young persons. And I think that's one of the goals for World Book Day. And it's a celebration of authors, of illustrators, books, and most importantly, a celebration of reading. March 17th so also marks St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick is the foremost patron saint of Ireland. And we know that the diaspora in Trinidad and the rest of the world like to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. It's a national holiday there and perhaps one of their most important feast days. But last week, most of the media would have been speaking about International Women's Day. So that's held on March 8th. And usually, like how Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the month of October is marked by pink ribbons, International Women's Day is marked by the color purple. And it celebrates the social, cultural, and political achievements of women worldwide. So I think it marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. And the theme for this year was Balance for Better. So you'd have seen a lot of women actually doing this and trying to balance not just job opportunities, but all aspects of living between the genders. And there was a reminder too, so in the last few days, that a policy on sexual harassment in the workplace is long so overdue in this country. And an interesting news item there stemming from International Women's Day that over 130,000 women locally have been victims of some sort of violence, whether physical or psychological, emotional, so even financial forms of abuse. So more than 130,000 women locally. And that's frightening. I think a lot more locally needs to be done to ensure that gender parity exists in Trinidad and indeed the rest of the West Indies. And it's been said that women have been battling, so there's a poem by one of the Greek stalwarts, Homer. And so I was reminded that look at how far we have come. As one of the quotes from that poem is, "Mother, go back up into your quarters and take up your own work, the loom and distaff. Speech will be the business of men, all men, and of me most of all, for mine is the power in this household." So thankfully we've moved so far away from thousands of years with the Greek Homer poem, so the Odyssey. And as part of International Women's Day, and we too want to celebrate it here on Doctor in the House, I have an interesting video which I hope will be inspirational to many of the young girls and women looking at Doctor in the House.
Sometimes being a girl in this country is hard.
The gender discrimination.
Being judged about who you are. Que te ven muy delicada por ser niña.
I'm constantly told that I'm not equal to boys.
Pues algo difícil para una mujer en México es que existe mucho machismo.
অনেকেই মনে করে যে গ্রামের মেয়ে হিসেবে সে তা পারবে না।
Some boys say that girls can't do soccer.
The boys are playing football there, but I can't. In night, the boys can go market, but I can't because I'm a girl.
People expect me to be somebody I'm not.
You must have everything, the latest magazines, the latest lipstick.
If you're dressing inappropriately, they will give you certain labels. If you have a lot of guy friends, they will give you certain labels.
Many people don't have a lot of expectations from you.
I tell many people I aspire to be a lawyer, and many people tell me, why don't you just become something more simple like a teacher?
You're a girl, you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to live like this.
The tendency is wrong because if we want to create a great world, there will be 50-50. Me half and a boy half.
মেয়েদের স্বাধীনতা মেয়েদের হওয়া উচিত মেয়েরা ছেলেরা যেভাবে হতে পারে মেয়েরা সেভাবে হতে পারে
The male lions stay home and watch the cubs and the females go, so why can't it be the same for us?
I try to be as hard as I can to live up to my expectations of myself and not anyone else's.
Just do what you want to do. Don't care about anyone.
One day when I grow up, I hope to be a woman which is happy, kind to one another.
আমার নিজের ইচ্ছা আছে আমি যে বড় হয়ে একটি ডাক্তার হব
I want to be a businesswoman.
ডিরেক্টরা
A travel journalist.
Arquitecta.
Some people expect small things from black girls, and I want to change that.
I will be like Malala Yousafzai. I will be like Madame Marie Curie. I will be like Mother Teresa.
So I think that was an appropriate one as part of the International Women's Day. And further afield, though, there was a furor over the past few days over this whole idea of what is called fat shaming and whether it should be part of the society, especially on the heels of Carnival on social media. And this whole scourge and the separate epidemic of obesity. We know that obesity is a powerful risk factor that drives problems like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, strokes, gallstones, arthritis, so and even different types of cancer, polycystic ovaries, fatty liver, so a plethora of medical issues associated with this global epidemic of obesity. But there are powerful hormonal forces at play that tend to reset the body to defend a higher weight. And that's why it makes it so hard for persons to actually lose weight. And it makes obesity a chronic disease. That is, the body will tend to return and retain that unhealthy higher weight. And the complications of obesity will subsequently progress. But what we know that is obesity is not just a matter of having a poor diet, that there are many factors, so it's a multifactorial problem. It's genetic, environmental, sleep hormones, stress, bacteria in the gut, thyroid issues, so a long list of other factors involved in this complex chronic disease. So it's not merely a matter of willpower. One of the things, though, that we would want to avoid is actually delving into a weight stigma, in which we have been seeing that a lot more in the society, in which persons actually experience bullying, prejudice, discrimination, and generally unfair treatment because of their weight. National studies in places like the United States have actually found that about 40% of persons have experienced some sort of bias in the workplace, healthcare, learning institutions, and other aspects of daily life. And that can be associated with low self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. So the message is that we know that obesity is a scourge, it's an epidemic, but at the same time, in a different way that we want to deal with this multifactorial and multi-causal disease. And staying on the idea of depression, because we know that that is almost a hidden epidemic. It's associated with problems with sleep, problems with appetite, mood abnormalities in which there are feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness, a loss of zeal and interest in things that you used to enjoy doing, a low self-esteem, problems with memory, concentration, and even suicidal thoughts. So in the last week, the Food and Drug Administration in the United States approved a novel drug for depression. It's the first one in decades. And it's actually going to be administered as a nasal spray in combination with tablets to treat the burden of depression. And it offers a new option for patients who haven't responded to some of the conventional treatments which we have. So, and of course, if it's a nasal spray, one would expect that there is a rapid onset of action. So we're looking forward to that being another tool in the armamentarium to deal with depression. In some of the local news over the past week, the Prime Minister is off to the United States for a cardiac evaluation. He said in a news conference last week that there was a history of soft plaque in his arteries, and it was a reminder to all of us about the importance of checkups and addressing risk factors for blockages to the arteries, which include diabetes, high blood pressure, cigarette smoking, cholesterol, a family history of heart disease, especially in younger persons, and just getting older. So in men over the age of 45, women more than 55, one must be particularly watchful about risk factors for having a heart attack or stroke, and chat with your doctor and aggressively managing these risk factors if they exist. Staying on the local front, some of the relatives of a grandmother who died at the Port of Spain General Hospital over the carnival from a life-threatening infection, septicemia, due to infection in her heart valves and bleeding from the stomach, were unhappy about the existing CHIT system at blood banks. The blood bank at the Northwest RHA apparently was closed over the carnival, so this is according to news reports in the printed press. And perhaps it's time that we make these minor alterations to actually enhance healthcare in the new millennium. And a reminder too that become a blood donor, and that is actually giving the gift of life to someone. Become a blood donor today. A new pathologist at the Forensic Science Center is expected soon, because I know that he'll be very busy with a rising murder rate as that scourge of crime continues unchecked. I've always said on this show, and perhaps ad nauseum as I say, that a hydra-headed monster of crime continues to plague our beloved Twin Island Republic, and there are close to 100 murders so far for 2019, and that is a terrifying statistic. A CAL plane was damaged at the Piarco International Airport, so some damage to the front of the plane. Preliminary costs range close to $1 million US, but I'm just wondering whether that aircraft was insured. No one was actually on the plane at the time apparently, so there were no injuries. And luckily, and as we saw in the news, that there was a tragic crash, a tragic airline crash in Ethiopia in which all persons on board died. And that is worrying, especially since apparently CAL, Caribbean Airlines, purchased some of the similar planes, the Boeing 737, and there have been two accidents since that new plane has been available worldwide. And I know that those planes have been grounded by some of the countries in the world. So we're still awaiting the results of investigations as to what caused these fatal accidents. But it's scary. It's scary. It's enough to engender fear in the hearts of passengers and travelers worldwide. Just a reminder, it's not too late to get your flu shot. So even after the carnival season, high-risk persons include those at extremes of age, healthcare workers, pregnant patients, and those with chronic medical illnesses such as diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, cancer, and kidney disease. Freely available at the health center and the hospital, so afford yourself of the opportunity if you go to clinic to get your flu shot for 2019. And staying in the topic of vaccinations, there was a huge Danish study that strongly supports that measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination does not increase the risk for brain abnormalities like autism, does not trigger it in susceptible children, and was not associated with a clustering of autism after vaccination. So it's a reminder, you know, there's been a lot of news reports, and when you go on the internet, so many items, usually from fake news sources about the fears and all of the side effects associated with vaccines. We heard a lot about it when we were speaking about the value of the flu shot or the influenza vaccine. And similarly with measles, mumps, and rubella, there's an outbreak at present in places like New York City, because of persons refusing to vaccinate their children, because of this unfounded fear that the vaccine was associated with brain and developmental abnormalities. And we know that that has been debunked. It's totally untrue. And the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine continues to be safe, and it's mandatory here as well prior to entry into school. So that's why we don't see measles, mumps, and rubella really anymore, but they're seeing that in places like the United States and Europe. The World Health Organization unveiled an ambitious 5-year plan last week to benefit 250 million more people. Apparently, the Global Health Organization has 3 targets: 1 billion more people for universal health coverage, to better protect another billion against health emergencies, and to improve the health and well-being of 1 billion more. So that's a laudable initiative, the 3 billion plan from the World Health Organization. And some fascinating news in Europe, that doctors announced that they had put HIV into sustained remission in a London patient following a stem cell transplant. So now we're talking about the cutting edge of medicine now. And apparently this person who has been infected with the AIDS virus has been effectively cured since 2017. So he has not progressed into any of the complications. And it's the second case. It comes about a decade after the so-called Berlin patient. So the first patient who was functionally cured of HIV and was able to stop taking any of those drugs. So apparently there are certain persons who seem to have a resistance to the virus, and they actually took stem cells from that individual and implanted it into the person who was infected with HIV. And they found that that person since 2017 has been able to stop drugs. There's been an intensive round of radiation and 2 bone marrow transplants so far. So fascinating information on cutting-edge research in HIV medicine. The incidence of syphilis, and we know that's a sexually transmitted infection that is surging, is at a 20-year high. And for women who are infected with the AIDS virus, especially those who inject drugs or have hepatitis C, the incidence of having syphilis may be 330% higher than those who do not inject drugs or don't have hepatitis C. So it's just a reminder about some of the perils associated with high-risk behaviors worldwide. One of my favorite shows is a TV game show called Jeopardy! And the beloved host for many decades, Alex Trebek. His voice was very calm as he gave a YouTube video a few days ago and disclosed that he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. We know that's one of the most frightening diagnoses that somebody will have to cope with. And the median survival for that is actually about a year to a year and a half. So most patients, so about 50% of those who would be diagnosed with cancer of the pancreas, 50% of them may actually be dead within 6 months, and 50% may live longer than 1.5 years. And the diagnosis is often made very late, unfortunately. And stage 4 means that the cancer is actually spread beyond the pancreas. It may be marked by pain in the abdomen, there may be vomiting, nausea, a yellowing to the eyes and the mucous membranes, or jaundice. And those are some of the later signs in the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. Usually surgery will not be an option at this stage for him, but he told fans of his long-running hit game show that he was going to continue working. And he actually said that he has his contract that runs for another 3 years, and we wish him well. Staying in the United States, there has been growing popularity in egg freezing in the US, which is appealing to younger working women. So they want to focus on their nascent professional success. And you know, sometimes a lot of women find too that there is a limited availability of partners at present whom they'd want to raise a family. So they actually want to take their eggs and freeze them. And many of the companies there are actually marketing and using a lot of strategies, a lot of very persuasive language and strategies to provide information. But what they're warning women there, especially younger women who want to freeze their eggs for later use to actually be fertilized at a later date, that ensure that you're getting a lot of information about the limitations and the side effects associated with egg freezing. And we know that now that the world is a global village, a lot of Trinidadians, a lot of West Indian women, so are actually seeking assisted reproductive techniques in places such as the United States. Neighboring Jamaica is actually going to be debating legalizing abortion for victims of rape or incest, and that is on the agenda for lawmakers in Jamaica. And that's something too that we need to bring into the front burner. So many changes are required to very antiquated and archaic laws locally, and perhaps it's time that we revisit some of these laws in Trinidad and Tobago. So a physician working at one of the accident and emergency departments in Florida has been hailed as a hero after jumping in front of an armed gunman last week after this guy, he started firing randomly at persons in the emergency department. So it's just a reminder some of the risks that we all face as healthcare professionals in the line of fire, literally. We were talking about the perils of not vaccinating children, and there was a fascinating report in an American journal about a gut-wrenching tetanus infection. So that was a 6-year-old child who hadn't received any vaccines in Portland, in Oregon. And apparently this 6-year-old boy contracted tetanus after getting a cut while playing on his family's farm in 2017. It was that state's first case of tetanus. So that's spread by a bacterium. It's associated with severe spasms of the muscles and lung failure. You had to spend a long time in the intensive care unit and treatable with antibiotics and some medications in order to combat tetanus. And it was the first case in over 30 years in that state. The boy spent more than 54 days in hospital. He had racking spasms of the muscles and had to stay in a darkened room. So after the marathon, which cost more than $800,000 US, the boy's parents still refused to vaccinate him against the disease. And it's a reminder too that if you haven't had a tetanus vaccine, a booster within the last decade, try to afford yourself of an opportunity for a free one at a health center. So you should be getting a boost of the tetanus toxoid at least every 10 years. One of the manufacturers of insulin last week, so actually, and it's one of the pet peeves I have on this show, is the rising cost and price associated with newer forms of insulin, especially as the patent for insulin was sold for only $1 by the discoverer. But one of the manufacturers in the United States is actually, so in an attempt to head off a lot of the criticism about rising drug costs, so has actually launched a cheaper version of one of the forms of insulin called Lispro, but it's still extremely expensive. And many of the persons in that country will struggle to afford injections of insulin regularly. So, and as a result, persons find that they actually cut their dose, they skip doses, they reuse needles. So it's a host of problems. So it's actually a hotbed of controversy in the world of diabetes now. The exorbitant prices, the skyrocketing costs. So it's almost like a mafia associated with the prices of insulin worldwide. The world of cricket, so there was an excellent performance by the West Indies team in the 50-over games against England as the universe boss Chris Gayle was named man of the series and in fact harkened back to the halcyon days of the 1980s. But sadly, we were brought back down to reality as the West Indies team was thrashed 3-0 in the T20 encounters over the past few days. But we wish them well in their preparation for the World Cup in 2019. we usually close this segment of the show with the Lifestyle Corner. And some of the news over the past week revolved around children being influenced by social media and were more likely to adopt unhealthy eating habits when they looked at certain videos on YouTube. In fact, it's interesting, but some of the social media sites like YouTube are actually banning persons who are criticizing vaccinations, or anti-vaxxers as they're called in the United States. Junk food advertising will be banned before 9 p.m. in a new watershed to tackle childhood obesity in the United Kingdom. So that's certainly a step in the right direction, and something that we could consider as we try to deal with our issues of childhood obesity locally. And children and younger persons with type 1 diabetes and their caregivers reported a decrease in diabetes-specific distress, like anxiety and depression, and an increase in perceived independence in diabetes self-care skills after attending a diabetes camp in North America. So there is a camp which is held in Trinidad, usually during the months of July or August, for type 1 diabetics, and it's something I think that all persons should get involved with. The Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago usually organizes an annual camp for type 1, and they found that younger persons were able to do better in terms of their management. There was less stress, fewer symptoms of depression in persons who attended such a camp. Staying on the idea of younger persons with diabetes, type 1 diabetics usually, they have problems in which the pancreatic cells that normally would produce insulin are damaged by antibodies. Instead of antibodies attacking germs or viruses, they start attacking cells in the pancreas. And 30,000 persons with type 1 diabetes in Scotland found that those who lived in poorer areas were at an increased risk for higher blood sugar levels than those living in wealthier cities. So there's a definite link between social deprivation. So we're looking at some of these social determinants of health, persons who are struggling, persons who have, by the fact that we need to provide healthier food at a lower cost, they are struggling to attain good blood sugar and good blood pressure levels. They often find that they have sedentary lifestyles because they may be living within poorer inner cities, so you don't have a lot of green space which affords you an opportunity to exercise. Perhaps crime is rampant in those areas too, so it's unsafe to be outside. And smoking too is so another factor in places that may be of a lower socioeconomic status. And that increases the chance for complications due to diabetes, such as blindness, end-stage kidney failure, amputations, and of course, heart attack and stroke. Middle-aged and older persons who are struggling with their weight, so they may be obese or have excess weight, can improve their blood pressure and heart health simply by walking briskly for a half hour in the morning. So just a half hour in the morning, a brisk walk, because that benefit was seen in studies to last for several hours. And of course, you want to limit the amount of sitting, the number of hours that you sit for during the course of the day. And many smaller studies have shown in journals, in medical journals, that perhaps walking around for maybe 1 or 2 minutes every hour is better than nothing. So every little helps when it comes to exercise. A small Australian study of 67 persons actually showing that brisk walk in the morning for half an hour is actually going to rebound for benefits later on in the day. And there are benefits to older persons. So don't think that you're too old to start exercising. So don't use your age as an excuse. Even if you start later in life, there are benefits to be accrued when we're talking about exercise. Apart from the obvious about type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, your fats, apart from weight loss, it helps your mood, it strengthens your bones, and even lowers your chance for cancer. So you're fighting the fat, and you're actually going to be adopting a healthier lifestyle in 2019. And that, of course, is usually the theme for this show on Doctor in the House. But just a reminder too, that be careful, especially in older persons, when you're walking dogs on a leash, because particularly in women, there was a slightly increased risk for falls and hip fractures when walking dogs on a leash, especially in older women. Those persons with diabetes may find that they have a significantly increased likelihood of experiencing low back, neck, or spinal pain. So it's almost like the disease itself increases that risk. So we know about the complications to the smaller vessels in the eyes, the kidneys, and nerves. But in this small study in Australia, it seems to also be associated with musculoskeletal pain to the lower back, neck, and spine. What about persons who develop diabetes during pregnancy, gestational diabetes, and they have been found to be twice as likely to have a heart attack and stroke? And as we know that 50% of persons who are diabetic when they're pregnant, they become type 2 diabetic usually within 10 years after delivery. And of course, we know that that risk is enhanced just being a West Indian. So if you're obese, if you have a family history, someone with polycystic ovaries, a past history of big babies or sudden unexplained childbirths, persons with fatty livers, all of those may increase the likelihood for type 2 diabetes. And the risk for sudden unexplained infant death was more than double among those whose mothers smoked even 1 cigarette per day while pregnant. Imagine we still have pregnant women who smoke. So if the mother smoked even 1 cigarette per day, that was too much. And it was associated with the chance for small infants and problems with birth. And that fell when the mothers reduced their smoking or quit. And just 1 cigarette per day harms the heart. A lot of individuals think that, all right, I'm smoking a pack a day, maybe if I smoke 1 or 2, it's not too bad. You may cut your risk for cancer, but the chance for a heart attack or stroke is still huge. So no smoking is better than 1. In the United Kingdom, having about 100 grams of blueberries for 4 weeks, twice a day, was associated with a drop in blood pressure similar to taking tablets, similar to taking medications for lowering your blood pressure. So a handful of blueberries morning and evening was the equivalent to the effect of some of these medications. And consuming raspberries, red raspberries with breakfast, was actually found to improve sugar control in persons who were struggling with their weight and helped with pre-diabetes. So those are persons who are not full-blown diabetics, but indeed it's a red flag and it's time to deal with resistance to insulin. And when you're thinking about adopting these healthy lifestyles, you want to avoid too much yo-yo dieting in which the weight is going to fluctuate, because that is also not healthy for the body. But what they've been finding about things like blueberries or raspberries is that there are some of the compounds there called anthocyanins. So that's a medical term in which these compounds actually seem to protect the heart. So they get rid of these things called free radicals. And the pigments that give these red and purple and blue plants their color actually help the lining to the arteries. They help the blood vessels. So that's some interesting information. Perhaps you can include that as part of your diet or as part of your smoothies. You can see a lot of persons shaking their heads. So as you think about all of the greens, maybe you want to vary the colors on your plate. What about social jet lag after the carnival? You know, you had some long days and nights, and people usually use their weekends to catch up on sleep. But they found that this sort of social jet lag, in inverted commas, for persons who sleep in late over the weekend, or Saturday and Sunday, or sleep for most of the day, they, however, gained more weight and showed issues with sensitivity to insulin. So it might actually affect blood sugars in those individuals compared to those who regularly got a good night's sleep. Right, so let's take a short break, and when we return, it's the open forum on Doctor in the House. Stay with us.
high blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
Need medical assistance? Come check us out at Ultimate Medical Clinic. We offer a wide variety of medical treatments. Why live in pain and suffer with wounds and ulcers?
Ultimate Medical Clinic also provides laser therapy for pain relief and wound healing.
We also treat arthritis, knee, neck pains, diabetic neuropathy, diabetic foot sores, psoriasis, eczema, and many more health conditions. Call us today to schedule your appointment, 665-1188, or visit us at 111A John Street, Montrose, Chaguanas.
Welcome back to Doctor in the House. And we have, usually after all of that news, usually it's the lighter side. And there's a video from a classic show that ran in the UK called The Two Runnies from the 1970s. And this sketch deals with a visit to the doctor. Let's have a look.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Diaz?
Death.
Death?
Yes, Death. Don't worry, no, it's all right. Old family name.
Oh.
There have been deaths in Ruislip Gardens since time immemorial.
Well, my name is Billet.
Yes?
And I strained my leg. I thought I'd like to come and register as a patient.
Really? As a patient? Good heavens.
Well, I mean, you're a doctor, so I thought I would register as a patient.
Oh, I see, yes. Well, now, I'll try and fit you in, Mr. Body.
Mr. Billet.
Oh, Billet. Oh, I'm also... Did I say corpse? I'm awfully sorry. Just a slip of the scalpel. Well, I'm an awfully popular man, you see. I'll try and fit you in, but a lot of people are trying to get into my practice. I'll just have a look at the admissions file here. Oh, dear.
Has he been having a nibble?
I think, well, if he has, he's gone a bit too far. I'll file him under M here. That's it. Now, let's have a look at the medical cards. There must be something here. Let's have a look. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Name dropper.
Sorry. Name dropper.
I
That's all I like. I'll just make a note of that. Name dropper. Oh, you'll be treated, yes. You'll have that dropper 3 times a day in your ear. Well, now then, we've got... Who have we got here? Oh, it's old James Tompkins.
Oh.
Yes, you can have his card.
Well, won't he be needing it?
Not anymore, no,
Oh,
no.
dear. Why, has he passed away?
Oh, yes, absolutely dead as a doornail. Yes, he was perfectly all right one minute, you know, and the next minute, crash, bang, wallop.
Oh, dear, what happened to him?
He fell down a laundry chute.
Oh.
Yeah, still, we all have to go somehow, don't we? Now then, just tell me a little bit about yourself while I feed the goldfish, will you? I'm an animal lover, you know. I've got great healing in my hands. Yes. Now, tell me, when were you born, and what do you enjoy, and how often?
Well, this is going to take a rather long time because, you see, part of the problem is that I was born... My father was a tea planter, and I went to... Is he asleep or fainted or having us on?
I think he's drowned, you know. Well, he won't go. Look, he won't go. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give him to the cat. I know that's what he would have wanted. Come on, Tiddles. Tiddles, wake up, Tiddles.
Does the cat always sleep on its back with its legs straight up in the air?
Well, it has done for the past 3 weeks, yes. I'll just file it with the mouse here. I tell you what, now you're here, I might as well show you around all this boring old paperwork. Now, over there are the medical histories, you see? Now, here we have the doctor's certificates, and, of course, here we have the death certificates. Hello? Oh, sorry. Hello, Death speaking. Oh, hello, Mrs. Murgatroyd. How nice to hear from you. Yes. How's your husband? Oh, dear, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, when's the funeral? Would you like some fudge?
No, thank you,
no. No, well, I at first thought it was fudge poisoning, food poisoning, you see. But it turned out to be tennis elbow. Yes. Well, no, it's not usually fatal. No, it isn't, no. Well, I'd love to come along, but I'm afraid I've got another function on the same afternoon. Yes, at the same cemetery, funnily enough. Yes. Old Mr. Grundy, you know, yes. Ingrowing toenail. Yes, well, there were complications, you see, yes. Well, he died. That was one of the complications. I tell you what, why don't we combine it and have a sort of do together? I mean, have a bit of fun. I could dig up a couple of friends and bring them along. Oh, well, look, I'm sorry to hear about your old man. Second husband, too, wasn't he? What? Oh, third husband, was he? Oh, my congratulations. I didn't know you'd married again. Hello? Oh, she's rung off.
Oh, good heavens, I must be going. Is that the time?
No, that's the barometer.
Well, in that case, it's high pressure I was going.
No, come on. Yeah, Mr. Billy. Plenty of time to kill.
Yes.
A few more details now. Are you single or buried?
And buried. Married. My wife's expecting a baby. I must
Oh, your wife. I'm a widower myself.
Yes, I thought you would have been.
Yes, I've been a widower for years. Good old cuckoo, dead on time as usual. Yes. It's only 12:30, you see. No, I tell a lie, it's 1 o'clock. He always goes to lunch at 1 o'clock.
I'll see you soon, Doctor.
Yes, you will see me soon. That's the broom cupboard.
That's for filing.
What's the matter with that?
What's the matter with everything you touch? I'm not coming to you, do you understand? I'll see myself out. No need to come down.
No, I won't. That's the laundry chute. Miss Fosdyke, any more patients? Miss Fosdyke? Miss Fosdyke?
What a visit and what a classic sketch from the 70s. The two Ronnies on Doctor in the House. So I'd like to give a special welcome to the members of our studio audience, Dr. Neela Ramdas Tilak Singh and Mrs. Satbudraman Donald Gangadeen. As we dig into the birthday bag for the month of March, a special happy birthday to Mrs. Chandra Ramdas, who celebrates hers on Friday. That's March the 15th. Miss Ann Limmer, the podiatrist, famed podiatrist from San Fernando, celebrates hers on March 12th, along with my good friend, Dr. Michael Prasad, and some close friends and firm fans of this show, the Mohammeds from Maruga, and she celebrated her birthday last week. She actually invested in cable just to look at Doctor in the House, so that's what she told me. And of course, some friends from Charleville, Mrs. Nalifa Ramjit celebrates hers this coming Saturday. Special hello to some fans as well, Sarah and Joseph and Roger Karamat. It's birthday greetings to Sarah. And a special hello to the Ramaratan family from Buccal and the Sibalaks from Central Trinidad. Birthday greetings belatedly to Mr. Lachman Steve Lalchan, who had his special day on March the 3rd. So we'll take a short break before we delve into the phone calls on the open forum. Don't go anywhere.
high blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
Need medical assistance? Come check us out at Ultimate Medical Clinic. We offer a wide variety of medical treatments. Why live in pain and suffer with wounds and ulcers?
Ultimate Medical Clinic also provides laser therapy for pain relief and wound healing.
We also treat arthritis, knee, neck pains, diabetic neuropathy, diabetic foot sores, psoriasis, eczema, and many more health conditions. Call us today to schedule your appointment, 665-1188, or visit us at 111A John Street, Montrose, Chaguanas.
Welcome back to Doctor in a House. It's the open forum, so the numbers on the screen. We'd love to hear from you. This is your time where if you have questions or thoughts of a medical nature, feel free to call in. And just a reminder to mute your television set when you're patched into the studio, because there will be a bit of feedback and you may be confused. So listen on your telephone rather than the television set when we take your call. So the numbers are up, 663-8373 or 645-4426. And while we are waiting on our first call, I mentioned about a term called prediabetes during the news. And we know that when we're speaking about a diagnosis of diabetes, type 2 diabetes or type 1 indeed, you're looking at blood sugars, whether fasting, 2 hours after you've taken a glucose drink, or sometimes another blood test called the A1C is used to diagnose. We'll talk a little bit about some of those figures shortly as we take our first caller for the evening. Hello and welcome to Doctor in the House. Hello.
My grandmother. Hello.
Hello, yes. Thank you for joining us. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello. We're hearing you, but you were speaking about your grandmother. Go right ahead.
Oh, yes. She has a blackness underneath her eye and she doesn't know what to do for it.
Okay, okay. Sometimes that can be linked, well, of course, it could be linked with different issues affecting the skin. Sometimes in terms of sleep, persons might notice a darkening underneath of the eyes. There may be medical issues that can cause darkening to various parts of the skin, including changes to hormones. So I think a good start may be to chat with a doctor, review whether there may be medications that may be causing a darkening. Some women actually find a darkening to their face, their cheeks, the lower part of the eyes. That may happen as part of pregnancy or after menopause in her case, as she's growing a bit older. So changes to the skin pigment, a darkening to the skin, might indicate changes to hormones. It may be due to medications. Sometimes there may be treatments available for persons such as your gran. Thank you for taking the time to call in. And we return to the phone lines. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Okay. I notice I'm getting a pain underneath my feet, especially like when I take rest, like lie down in the bed or overnight sleep or sit down for a long period. Okay. And I walk in, I get a pain by my heel.
Okay. So, right.
So no, I don't know. I don't have no problem at all. Like,
but you're not diabetic or any of the complications. Okay.
I'm 56.
Thank you very much for calling in. Since a lot of persons find, so especially now that you're 56, of course, based on how much standing you do, how much walking that you do, the tissues in your feet may actually become inflamed. So there's a term that we use called plantar fasciitis. It's a big term that just means that the tissues are inflamed, and persons may find that just simply paying attention to good footwear, weight loss if necessary, avoiding standing for lengthy periods of time might actually help with symptoms. So the inner soles, so some of those gel soles which are readily available in pharmacies or shoe shops may actually alleviate your pain. Persons with heel spurs, so that's another common issue affecting the feet. Persons with heel spurs may actually find that those conservative measures help their pain too, but they may actually have to chat with their doctors first to see if stepping up into steroid injections or some sort of therapy may be necessary. Seeing a podiatrist or a chiropodist, so that's someone who actually deals with issues with the feet, and they may be the best persons to advise in terms of footwear and in terms of good health towards your feet. Doing some blood tests now that you're 56, just to ensure that you don't have underlying medical issues if you haven't, is probably prudent too. Perhaps checking your blood sugar. So weight loss, paying attention to footwear, maybe the types of exercises that you do, some of the inner soles, seeing a chiropodist, a podiatrist, or even a specialist who handles muscles, bones, and joints may all form a part of your management. Just a disclaimer, as we always say on this show, that we're not attempting to make a diagnosis just on the premise of a phone call for a few seconds, but it's just to guide you and nudge you in the right direction, and I'm sure that our viewers and callers would appreciate this. So far so good. Let's return to the phone lines. Good evening and welcome to the show. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you for joining us. A pleasure to have you on the line.
Just wanted to find out, there are different types of insulin used to treat diabetes.
Sure.
Quivalin, Navalin, 70-30, and Lantus.
Absolutely. So there are different forms of insulin which are available. And in terms of, well, I'm reckoning, hello, are you still on the line? So I'm reckoning that one of the questions a lot of patients ask is which one is best, which one would be better. Now, there are longer acting forms of insulin, there are medium acting forms and very short acting. And the best form of insulin is that type of insulin that works for you. So no person is going to be the same, and all diabetics may find, especially so after many years of grappling with the illness, that the pancreas loses the ability to produce insulin. In fact, when you're diagnosed with diabetes, it's thought that about half of your insulin stores have been depleted already. So as the years roll on, it's analogous to thinking about squeezing an orange. Beyond a certain point, you won't get any juice from the said orange. So as the years roll on, you actually find that you are not able to control your blood sugar with tablets. So persons find that the use of insulin becomes necessary. For younger persons who may be diagnosed, or those individuals who may be diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, they find that they require injections of insulin from the outset. And they may find that using insulin with meal times, perhaps just before you eat, and then using a long-acting form of insulin in the night is the best regimen to get the hemoglobin A1C down to your target. So the hemoglobin A1C is a blood test that shows you how well your sugar has been controlled for the past 3 months. And it's a blood test that all persons with diabetes should be aware of. It's expressed as a percentage, and your target is perhaps under 6.5 to 7%. Younger persons, you want to be aggressive with that target, and in persons who may be older, frailer, with multiple medical issues, perhaps you don't want to get the sugars down too low because it'd be detrimental to health. So it's an excellent question, but unfortunately there's no right and wrong answer. Persons find that the insulins will tend to peak at different times. Persons find that the cost of insulin is quite restrictive, especially the newer forms. But we have forms of insulin like the NNR, which are freely available as part of the CDAP program and at hospital. And these are branded insulins, so they're not inferior quality medications either. So we head down south to San Fernando. Good evening and welcome to Doctor in the House.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
I'm so fortunate, doctor. This is Pat. Just calling to let you know that your show is fantastic. I am enjoying it. But I would like, if it's possible, if you could highlight some of the side effects of prednisolone.
Yes. Thank you very much for that call, and it's always a delight to hear from viewers like you. So prednisolone, so that's one of the steroid type of medications. We know that steroids are widely used, and we naturally produce steroids by one of the glands above the kidneys called the adrenal glands. So these steroids are essential for life. So they have all sorts of effects in the body. They are hormones which are required for day-to-day activities and everyday function. However, steroids are sometimes used, especially long-term, in persons who have various medical illnesses, such as rheumatoid arthritis or lupus, long-term or certain kidney issues. Some of the side effects for persons who are using high doses of steroids for months or years may include weight gain, a change in the shape of the face, it becomes rounded like a moon. There may be acne, excessive hair growth, thin bones, an increased susceptibility to infections because it suppresses immunity. And it may be a cause for diabetes, high blood pressure. It may affect the eyes. There may be cataracts or increased pressure in the eyes. And persons who take large doses of steroids for long periods should not stop them abruptly. So that's one of the caveats when it comes to prescribing steroids. You must be vigilant about weaning off your steroid dose. So do not stop your steroids without consultation with your physician, because abrupt cessation of steroids can actually affect those glands, the adrenal glands, and you can get very sick and can actually present with a coma. It's an excellent question, the side effects of steroids. Most persons with short-term use of steroids, they work brilliantly. They are fantastic drugs for persons who may be asthmatic, persons with many of the immune-related issues in which the body's immune system is haywire. They are wonderful drugs, but they should be prescribed with caution and in a very carefully managed environment with your doctor. And certainly it shouldn't be abused and not purchased over the counter, because many persons find that they feel better when they take steroids transiently. It's almost like they get a state of euphoria, so it can help your pain. As in fact, one of the frequent times that steroids may be used is actually for joint pain, and it helps. They are so effective. They are brilliant drugs, but especially when used long-term, side effects may ensue. So let's head up to the capital city, Port of Spain. Good evening and welcome to Doctor in the House.
Good afternoon. Good evening, Doctor.
Thank you for joining us. A pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I have two questions. First, could you tell me what causes a numbness of my toes at times? And secondly, is there a cure for an enlarged heart? I would listen off air.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And two insightful questions. The numbness to the toes or numbness to the feet may be due to a host of reasons. Sometimes we may never find that reason, so despite our best efforts, persons may find that there may be a family history of trouble to the nerve endings. There's a medical term that we often use called neuropathy, which means a disease affecting the nerves, a problem affecting the nervous system. And those smaller nerve endings, apart from numbness, if they're affected, they may cause burning, lancing, the junjuni that we've spoken about on this show already, and in fact affect things like sleep and the quality of life. So neuropathic pain or nerve pain can be due commonly to diabetes, a low level of vitamin Bs, such as vitamin B12, persons who drink a lot of alcohol, large quantities of alcohol, certain medical problems. We spoke about those persons who have issues with the immune system, such as lupus. There may be drugs or medications prescribed by a doctor that can actually affect nerve endings. Some of the cancer drugs, some antibiotics which are commonly prescribed, may transiently affect the nerve endings. So a plethora of causes, many reasons, requires blood investigations, I would think, and perhaps in conjunction with your regular primary care doctor or your GP, he may want to think about sending you, apart from blood tests, sometimes for nerve studies, nerve conduction studies, or even chat with a nerve specialist, a neurologist, if it is deemed to be necessary. Your second question is an interesting one, since it's so common, and it's one of the themes even in my news and when I host Doctor in a House for Healthy Lifestyles, that an enlarged heart may occur from many underlying medical illnesses, such as high blood pressure. If you've had a heart attack and the muscle becomes weaker, maybe due to viruses, maybe due to medical problems separately that must be managed. Diabetes. So there are many reasons why someone's heart may become enlarged, but especially if the muscle becomes weaker and flabby and that pump becomes damaged, you may find that symptoms like chest pain, shortness of breath, persons actually get fluid in their lungs, so they're short of breath at rest or on mild exertion. If they lie flat, they're struggling. They wake up from sleep short of breath or may have swollen ankles. Those are all symptoms of what is called congestive heart failure that may follow an enlarged heart. So the first step is really to find out the reason. Sometimes they may be reversible causes or they may be permanent problems, and there are medications that would be prescribed in conjunction with your GP and a cardiologist, a heart specialist usually. There are different tests employed as part of the investigations apart from blood tests. So an ECG, so that's the tracing that looks at the electricity in the heart, an ultrasound of the heart, the echocardiogram, and even going as far as looking at the state of the arteries, doing an angiogram in which involves an injection of a dye to look to see the extent of blockages. Persons, if the pump is very weak, they actually have special devices, and we're talking about cutting-edge medicine now in the world of heart diseases, that there are special devices to actually strengthen that pump. And if we think about further, and it has moved from the realm of science fiction now very much firmly into modern medicine. We think about heart transplants. We think about a bionic heart, an artificial heart, which is available in different parts of the world. Not yet locally or in the West Indies, but certainly something for the future. We head to Couva. Good evening and welcome to Doctor in the House. Thank you for joining us. Hello.
Pleasant good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. You're on the air.
Hello, good evening. I have a question concerning a 16-year-old who is prone to anxiety attacks, but usually the week before her period comes. Is there any connection with thyroid function tests and things like PMDD that you can advise about? What course of action to get treatment?
So I know that usually on this show that we have some wonderful callers, some very well-informed viewers, and that one was no exception. So that's a brilliant question that many persons find, especially with the change in hormones just before the menstrual cycle. They find that they may be depressed, they may be anxious or moody, apart from the teenage angst, because at 16 years old that there are so many factors and stresses which are around, especially at school. So examinations around the corner, that you may find that there are so many factors involved with increasing anxiety levels in a 16-year-old. But definitely having a hyperactive thyroid is one of the reasons for persons being anxious. If they lose weight, they're sweating, they're nervous, the heart may race. So the symptoms mimic an anxiety attack. If the thyroid gland, which is the little gland in the neck, usually shaped like a butterfly and secreting a lot of hormones into the bloodstream, it's hyperactive and associated with anxiety-related symptoms. But if the symptoms tend to be especially linked with the periods, with a menstrual cycle, it's probably due to the change in hormones associated with that, with the cycle. And there are medications that can sometimes be used. I don't want to necessarily recommend that we throw out anti-anxiety drugs or drugs for depression or mood, especially in persons who may be 16 years old. But sometimes diet and exercise, weight loss, can actually help to alleviate some of these symptoms that might be menstrual related. Having a chat with the gynecologist, some girls find that actually using a hormonal form of contraception may help with their mood. Some sort of counseling, psychological counseling is often employed. Reducing the amount of caffeine that the girl is drinking might help. Some of the energy drinks, too much tea or coffee might be exacerbating anxiety. And definitely checking a thyroid function is part of the management as you try to tick off all the boxes and make sure that you rule out some medical reasons for anxiety. But certainly I wish you and her so all the best, especially as this time it's a difficult time for teenagers as they balance so many aspects of life and starting to come to terms with the challenges of school and daily living. We head over to the east, this time to Sangre Grande. Hello and welcome to the show. Hello? 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 Welcome. Sangre Grande is in the house. Thank you for joining us. You're on the air.
Liver,
right.
Diet will help.
And that is fast becoming a major health issue, this so-called non-alcoholic fatty liver. Persons, you're sent for blood tests and the liver enzymes are off. So your doctors are wondering, so why? They send you for an ultrasound scan and they find that there are fatty bits on the liver. You don't drink alcohol, and it's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's important, I think, that you think about a healthy diet, and I'm so pleased that you alluded to it. A healthy lifestyle can actually cause that to become a reversible entity. It is becoming the leading cause for liver disease in the world because of obesity. It's one of the complications of obesity, this fatty liver. It's strongly associated with diabetes, so good control of your blood sugar. If your cholesterol is elevated, your doctor may want to pay attention to the liver function test and decide whether or not starting you off on a cholesterol-lowering drug will be safe for you. Checking a thyroid function is also a good idea, and looking for some other causes of a fatty liver. So the commonest reason may well be obesity and alcohol and diabetes now in the world, but there are some other medical issues that should be sought if somebody is found to have a fatty liver. There are some vitamins that have been found to perhaps be useful and reduce the level of the liver enzymes and perhaps the fatty liver itself, some of the vitamins over the counter, but don't start any medications without your doctor's advice. And having a healthy lifestyle, that diet that mimics a Mediterranean sort of food pattern with fruits, vegetables, nuts, peas and beans, low fat and low salt foods, all form a part, and limiting alcohol and stopping smoking, all form a part towards dealing with a fatty liver. And we'll take our final caller for the evening, this time from Claxton Bay. Good evening and welcome to our show.
Hello? Hello?
Thank you for joining us, sir, and welcome.
Yeah. Doctor?
Yes, sir.
I have a knee here. I get burned with acid.
Oh, boy. I'm sorry to hear that.
And the bone, and then when I bend it down, it's cracking.
Oh, boy.
And it'll hurt me and it'll give me pain sometime.
Yes.
I get psoriasis and all kind of thing already, but the psoriasis going right now.
Okay.
I went on the machine.
Right.
And I take a reading on the machine and they show me my cells and then they stick up together. But I separate the cells, I take probiotic.
Okay.
Right? And they start to work good again. But otherwise, the knee is my problem right now. Everything else good, but the only the knee.
Thank you very much for taking the time to call in. I could hear that you're under some pressure with that knee. Now, if I could just mention, though, that you spoke about the acid that can sometimes form within joints, and one of the types, so it's actually uric acid that can actually form crystals in a joint, and it's associated with a type of arthritis called gout. Now, that can occasionally be a cause for knee pain. Persons find as they're growing old as a result of wear and tear and degeneration to the lining of the cartilage. So the cartilage that lines a joint, you may actually find that you have arthritis there as well. So the word arthritis means that a joint is inflamed. But different types of arthritis, gouty arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, the osteoarthritis is part of wear and tear. And psoriasis, that is a skin problem that is also associated with arthritis. So it makes me wonder whether the knee pain that you're experiencing could sometimes be, I'm not saying it's not due to the acid or maybe due to wear and tear, but sometimes psoriasis itself can cause a special type of arthritis, a different type of arthritis, and you may actually require medications to control it. Although your skin actually improves, some persons just have a very tiny patch of psoriasis and they are crippled with the joint pains. Some persons find they have issues affecting their nails. So, and psoriasis, so just a reminder to you, psoriasis also can inflame the lining of the arteries in your heart. So that too has been viewed as a risk factor for heart disease and even for diabetes. So although the skin is apparently improving, remember that there are associations with psoriasis and the joints, the nails, and even the heart. Have a chat with your doctor, I would think, about whether or not you need to do certain blood tests to exclude causes for the knee pain. And of course, weight loss remains first line. Making sure that you're exercising with proper footwear and using some of the medications such as the anti-inflammatories to deal with your pain may be initial steps in your management. We heard about a caller from San Fernando who was asking about the side effects of steroids. So you want to limit any sort of injections into the knee itself, particularly if they're steroid based. You want to chat with your doctor and see if that may be useful for you. Doing x-rays, doing blood tests, thinking about even physiotherapy, and eventually working your way up to having a chat with an orthopedic surgeon, so that's a specialist who handles muscles, bones, and joints, might be the last part of your management. But weight loss, physiotherapy, some of the over-the-counter remedies are all beneficial for your knee pain, and paying attention to the fact that psoriasis may be a hidden risk factor that is present. Wow, what a host of wonderful callers this evening. And I'd like to close our show, but just as we had a bit earlier during the news, staying on the theme with International Women's Day. And I have a video that I think you will enjoy. Let's have a look. Happy Women's Day. So it's a reminder though that this begins from childbirth. This begins from childbirth, and indeed, balance for better. So in closing, I would like to share a quote from my mother who sent it to me on my phone. So, and I just thought it would be relevant for healthy lifestyles. Health doesn't come from nutritious foods, vitamins, and medicines alone. It comes from peace of mind, peace in the heart, peace in the soul. It is magnified by laughter, love, and faith in God. May you find peace and good health, not only for a day, but for a lifetime, and that is my wish to you. May you find peace and good health, not only for a day, but a lifetime. Thanks to our wonderful callers, brilliant crew here at IBN, fabulous studio audience. Good night, God bless, and enjoy the week ahead.